The desert wind howled, a relentless whisper carrying secrets across the parched earth. It was a sound Elena Garcia had come to dread, a constant reminder of the emptiness that had swallowed her brother, Miguel, and the group he was with. She never imagined her life would be consumed by a single, agonizing question. Where are they? This was not just a story of a few lost souls. It was a chilling testament to the brutal realities of a journey undertaken by millions, a journey where hope often collided with an unforgiving landscape and the darkest corners of human enterprise. Prepare yourself, because what happened in the vast, desolate stretches of the Arizona desert would redefine everything one believed about desperation, survival, and the lengths a sister would go to find her family. If you think disappearances are just newspaper headlines, wait until you hear this. What happened that night changed everything about what Elena believed about safety and justice. The sun, a merciless orb in the cerulean sky, beat down on the cracked earth, mirroring the relentless pressure building in Elena's chest. Every gust of wind seemed to carry Miguel's name, a phantom echo of his laughter, a cruel reminder of his absence. The vastness of the desert, once a symbol of freedom and raw beauty, had transformed into an oppressive, silent tomb, holding secrets she desperately needed to unearth. This was not a story of a simple mishap, a wrong turn, or a brief detention. This was a narrative steeped in the chilling reality of human vulnerability, of dreams colliding with a ruthless underworld, and of a sister's unyielding refusal to surrender to the void. Elena's journey into the heart of this mystery would force her to confront not only the harshness of nature, but the profound darkness lurking within humanity itself. Her heart, once filled with the warmth of family bonds, was now a crucible of fear, hope, and a burning, she would not rest until she knew the truth, until she could bring Miguel home, in whatever form the desert would allow. This was her solemn vow, whispered into the relentless wind, a promise etched into the very core of her being. Before the silence, there was life. Miguel, Elena's younger brother, was a dreamer, a vibrant soul with eyes full of ambition that stretched beyond the dusty streets of their small Mexican village, a place where opportunities were as scarce as rain in the dry season. He was 22, full of an infectious optimism that belied the hardships of their lives. Miguel spoke of building a better life, not just for himself, but for their entire family. He envisioned a future where their mother, Maria, wouldn't have to work tirelessly under the scorching sun, her hands calloused from endless labor, her back perpetually aching. He promised to send money home, enough to fix their crumbling roof, enough to buy their mother the small, comfortable chair she always dreamed of, a place where she could finally rest her weary bones. He spoke of a small house with a garden, a place where their younger cousins could play safely, away from the dangers of the streets. Elena, 4 years his senior, had always been his protector, his confidant. She saw the fire in his eyes, but also the naivete that worried her. The stories of the border were grim, whispered tales of danger and despair, of people lost to the elements, or worse, to the shadowy figures who preyed on the vulnerable. Yet, Miguel's resolve was unshakable. He believed in the promise of the American dream, a dream he was willing to risk everything for, a dream that shimmered like a mirage on the distant horizon, beckoning him forward. He had saved every peso, worked extra shifts at the local brick factory, his muscles straining, his body aching, all for this one chance, this one desperate gamble for a better future. He even sold his prized possession, a worn but cherished guitar, the one he used to serenade Elena and their mother on quiet evenings, its melodies now a fading memory. The sacrifice was immense, but the dream was bigger. He was one of a group of 10, mostly young men and a few women, all fueled by similar hopes. There was Sophia, a young mother with an infant daughter back home, carrying a worn photograph of her child close to her heart, her hopes pinned on reuniting with her family in California, a family she hadn't seen in years. Her eyes, though tired, held a fierce maternal love, a silent vow to endure anything for her child. There was old Pedro, a seasoned laborer in his late 50s, his body aching from years of physical toil, his face a roadmap of weathered lines, seeking one last chance at prosperity before his strength gave out entirely, hoping to leave something, anything, for his grandchildren. He coughed frequently, a dry, hacking sound that worried Elena. Studious young woman named Anna, who dreamed of becoming a teacher, carrying a tattered English dictionary in her small bag, practicing phrases in hushed tones. Each carried their own burdens, their own desperate hopes, their faces a mixture of fear and determination, a silent testament to the universal human desire for a life of dignity. They all trusted their lives to a coyote, known only as El Fantasma, the ghost. His reputation was mixed. Some spoke of his cunning and success, his ability to navigate the most treacherous routes, his uncanny knack for evading detection. Others whispered of his ruthlessness and questionable ethics, of promises broken and lives endangered. But he was known for taking the difficult routes, the ones less patrolled, promising a higher chance of success, albeit at a higher price and greater risk. Their plan was to cross through a remote, less patrolled section of the Sonoran Desert, near the Organ Pipe Cactus National Monument, ADC, place of breathtaking beauty and deadly hazards. The landscape there was deceptively serene, a vast expanse of saguaros and ocotillo, their silhouettes stark against the endless sky, their arms reaching towards the heavens. But beneath its beauty lay extreme temperatures that could fluctuate by 50 degrees in a single day, venomous creatures like rattlesnakes and scorpions, and an unforgiving lack of water, a silent killer in the vast emptiness. The journey was estimated to take 3 to 5 days on foot, a grueling trek across some of the most inhospitable terrain in North America, a test of endurance that pushed the human body to its absolute limits. They had packed light, only the bare essentials, a few liters of water, some dried tortillas, a change of clothes, and the weight of their dreams. The preparations were shrouded in secrecy, whispered conversations held in hushed tones, away from prying ears, under the cloak of night. Goodbyes were brief, filled with unspoken fears and fervent prayers for safe passage, tears held back, smiles forced. Elena remembered the weight of Miguel's embrace, the way he lingered, his arms tight around her, as if trying to memorize her scent, her presence, a desperate attempt to capture a moment that might be their last. He had given her a small, hand-carved wooden bird, a gift from their grandmother, telling her to keep it safe, a symbol of their unbreakable bond, a promise of his return, tangible piece of their shared history. The last call Elena received from Miguel was brief, his voice crackling with static, filled with a nervous excitement that barely masked his underlying fear. "We're almost there, Elena. Just a few more days. Tell Mama I love her. And don't worry, I'll be careful. We'll be together soon." The connection had then abruptly cut out, leaving Elena staring at her phone, a cold knot forming in her stomach, a premonition she couldn't shake, a chilling whisper of dread that echoed in the sudden silence. That was 3 weeks ago. 3 weeks of agonizing silence, of nights spent staring at the ceiling, replaying his last words, searching for a hidden meaning, a clue she might have missed, a sign that everything would be all right. The days stretched into an eternity, each one heavier than the last, each sunrise bringing a fresh wave of anxiety, each sunset deepening the shadows of uncertainty. The air in their small home, usually filled with the comforting sounds of daily life, was now thick with unspoken fear, a suffocating blanket of dread. The initial days after Miguel's last call were a blur of frantic phone calls and desperate inquiries. Elena contacted everyone she knew, every relative, every friend, anyone who might have heard a whisper from the vast, informal migrant community that stretched across borders, a network of shared hopes and fears. She called numbers given to her by other families who had successfully made the crossing, numbers of people who facilitated communication across the border, but each call was met with a dead end or a vague, unhelpful response. No news is good news, some would say, a platitude that offered no comfort, only a hollow echo of false hope. The silence from the group was unsettling, then terrifying. Days bled into a week, then 2. The usual channels for information, the informal networks of border communities, the hushed conversations among those who had made the crossing, yielded nothing. It was as if the desert had simply swallowed them whole, leaving no trace, no ripple on the vast, indifferent surface of the land. The family back home was consumed by a suffocating anxiety. Their mother, Maria, a woman whose strength had always been their anchor, now seemed to shrink with each passing day, her once vibrant eyes red-rimmed and hollow from incessant prayer and sleepless nights, her hands clasped tightly, perpetually, trembling. Elena knew she couldn't simply wait, couldn't surrender to the crushing weight of uncertainty. She had to act. She packed a small bag, withdrew her meager savings, money she had painstakingly saved for years working odd jobs, cleaning houses, selling homemade tortillas, every coin a testament to her quiet determination. She knew the risks of traveling north herself, the dangers she would face, but the thought of Miguel, lost and alone, was a torment she could not bear. Driven by a primal, unyielding need to find her brother, to bring him home, no matter the cost, she began her own perilous journey north, a journey into the heart of the unknown, fueled by love and desperation. Her arrival in a small Arizona border town, a place called Ajo, was disorienting. The heat was oppressive, a dry, suffocating blanket that seemed to press down on everything, baking the very air she breathed, making every breath a struggle. The sun beat down mercilessly, reflecting off the pale, dusty streets, creating a shimmering haze that distorted the horizon. The air was thick with dust and unspoken anxieties, a palpable tension that hung in the air like a storm cloud about to break, a silent hum of desperation. The town itself felt like a place of transit, a temporary stop for those passing through, either north or south, a hub of desperate hope and quiet despair, a crossroads of dreams and shattered realities. Buildings were sun-baked, their paint peeling, reflecting the harshness of the environment and the passage of time, their facades worn and weary. She immediately sought out local aid organizations, migrant shelters, and even the Border Patrol office, her voice hoarse from pleading. Her story met with weary sympathy but little concrete help. The offices were busy, filled with other desperate faces, other stories of loss and longing, a constant stream of human suffering, a silent parade of broken hearts. Disappearances along the border were tragically common, a grim statistic swallowed by the vastness of the land, a footnote in the endless cycle of migration, a silent epidemic. The authorities, while polite and seemingly empathetic, seemed overwhelmed, their resources stretched thin, their primary focus often on apprehension rather than rescue, on enforcement rather than humanitarian aid. Elena felt a growing frustration, a burning rage against the indifference she perceived, the bureaucratic walls that seemed to separate her from the truth, from her brother. She learned of other families, equally desperate, equally lost, their faces etched with the same pain, their voices echoing her own pleas, their eyes mirroring her own anguish. The scale of the problem was immense, a silent epidemic of vanishing hopes that rarely made national headlines, remaining largely invisible to the wider world, a tragedy unfolding in the shadows. The desert wind, a constant companion, seemed to mock her efforts, carrying only dust and silence. The first faint glimmer of a lead came from a woman named Sophia, not the young mother from Miguel's group, but another migrant who had made a successful crossing days after Miguel's group was supposed to. Elena found her at a small, unassuming church that offered refuge to newly arrived migrants, a sanctuary in the harsh landscape, its cool, dim interior a welcome respite from the scorching sun. Sophia, her face etched with fatigue but her eyes sharp and watchful, had heard whispers of El Fantasma's group encountering trouble, not with the Border Patrol, but with something far more sinister. They said they ran into trouble with others, Sophia whispered, her voice barely audible, her eyes wide with fear, darting nervously around the small, quiet room, as if afraid of being overheard, as if the very walls had ears. Not the patrol, people who wanted more than just money for the crossing. Very bad. They were the bad implication people. Hung heavy in the air. A cartel, a rogue faction, or something even more predatory, preying on the vulnerable. This was the first concrete hint that their disappearance wasn't just a matter of getting lost or caught by the elements. There was a human element, a malevolent force at play, a deliberate act of malice. This revelation, though terrifying, ignited a new spark of determination in Elena. It meant there was a reason, a story to uncover, not just a void, not just an empty space where her brother used to be. It meant there was someone to hold accountable, someone to pursue, a tangible enemy to fight, not just an indifferent desert. The fear was still there, a cold knot in her stomach, but it was now tempered by a fierce resolve. Elena began to piece together a timeline, a mosaic of fragmented information, each piece a tiny shard of glass reflecting a distorted image of the truth, a puzzle with too many missing pieces. Miguel's group had been scheduled to cross on a specific night, a moonless Tuesday, under the cover of darkness to avoid detection, a night chosen for its optimal stealth. They were supposed to rendezvous with El Fantasma's associates near a remote water cache, a vital lifeline in the scorching desert, marked by a cluster of sun-bleached rocks and a single gnarled mesquite tree, its branches twisted by years of wind and sun, a silent sentinel in the vast emptiness. But they never made it to the next checkpoint, a dilapidated shack known to smugglers as the Rooster's Roost, a place where migrants would rest and resupply before the final leg of their journey, a place of temporary respite before the final push. The last known signal from Miguel's phone had pinged near a desolate stretch of highway, 47 miles from the planned crossing point, an area known for its treacherous terrain and hidden trails, far from any established route, a place of shadows and secrets. This was incredibly odd. Why would they be so far off course? Had they gotten lost, or had they been forced off their path, diverted by an unseen hand? The desert held its breath, waiting for answers, its vast silence amplifying Elena's growing dread. Each unanswered question a fresh stab of fear, a tightening band around her chest. The sun, a relentless eye in the sky, seemed to watch her, its heat a constant reminder of the unforgiving environment. The day they were supposed to arrive, or rather didn't, was etched into Elena's memory with the searing clarity of a brand. It was a Tuesday, a day that had promised a new beginning, now forever stained with dread, a day that marked the demarcation between a life of hope and a life consumed by an agonizing search. The sky had been an impossibly clear blue, mocking the storm brewing in her heart. The stark beauty of the desert, a cruel contrast to the unfolding tragedy, its vastness mirroring the emptiness she felt. The initial reactions from the families back home were a desperate scramble, a flurry of calls that went unanswered, texts that remained unread, each unanswered ring a hammer blow to their fragile hopes, a confirmation of their worst fears. Elena remembered her mother's wail, a sound that tore through her soul, a primal cry of anguish that would haunt her dreams for years to come, echoing in the quiet moments of the night, a sound that spoke of a mother's deepest pain. The first official reports from authorities when they finally came were dismissive, categorizing them as presumed lost or voluntarily missing, terms that felt like a betrayal to the families who knew their loved ones would never simply vanish without a trace, abandoning their dreams and their families. The bureaucratic language stripped away the humanity of the situation, reducing 10 lives to mere statistics, to numbers on a report, erasing their individual stories, their hopes, their fears. Elena felt a cold fury, a resolve solidifying within her to prove them wrong, to give names and faces back to those who had been erased, to reclaim their humanity from the cold grip of official indifference. She would not let them become just another statistic. As Elena delved deeper, she encountered contradictions that gnawed at her like a persistent desert scavenger, each inconsistency a sharp tooth tearing at the fabric of the official narrative. A man who claimed to have seen El Fantasma on the day of the crossing, a low-level contact in the smuggling network, gave a vague description that didn't quite match what others had said about the coyote's appearance or his usual vehicle. He was different, the man mumbled, avoiding eye contact, his gaze fixed on some distant point beyond Elena, as if seeing a ghost. Had a different truck, older, darker, and he seemed agitated, watched, nervous. His words were hesitant, like laced with an unspoken fear that hinted at a deeper, more dangerous truth. Another witness, a local rancher named Jedediah, known for his gruff demeanor but keen observations honed by years in the desert, his eyes narrowed from a lifetime of staring into the vast distances, reported seeing an unfamiliar, unmarked black van in a remote area of his property, an area too far off the usual routes for legitimate traffic just days after the group went missing. He described it as out of place, its windows tinted, its presence unsettling. Didn't look like no tourist van, he grumbled, spitting tobacco juice onto the dry earth, a dark stain against the pale dust. More like something hidden, something not meant to be seen. These small inconsistencies, like grains of sand, began to pile up, forming a mountain of suspicion. a clear indication that something was deeply wrong, that the official narrative was a flimsy veil over a... The behavior of some individuals connected to the smuggling network was also strange. They became evasive, their eyes darting, their answers clipped, their fear palpable, as if a silent threat hung over them, a sword dangling by a thread. Elena sensed a cover-up, a conspiracy of silence designed to protect someone, or something far more powerful, a web of deceit woven by fear and greed. The desert, with its vast and different expanse, seemed to be conspiring against her, holding its secrets close, its silence deafening, its secrets buried deep within its unforgiving embrace. What were they hiding, and why? The questions echoed in her mind, a relentless torment. The investigation, propelled largely by Elena's relentless efforts and the growing attention from local activists who had heard her story, began to pick up pace. It was at one of the community meetings, organized by a small nonprofit advocating for migrant rights, a beacon of hope in the often bleak landscape of the border, that Elena met Sarah Chen. Sarah was an independent journalist, sharp-witted and tenacious, specializing in border issues and human rights, her reputation preceding her like a desert wind. She had a reputation for digging deep, for giving a voice to the marginalized, for shining a light on forgotten stories, on the human cost of policies and greed. Sarah heard Elena's story, saw the raw pain and unwavering determination in her eyes, and immediately recognized the potential for a larger expose, a story that could shed light on the dark underbelly of border crossings, on the human cost of policies and greed, a narrative that transcended individual tragedy to speak to a systemic crisis. Sarah, with her sharp investigative skills, her network of contacts within law enforcement, aid organizations, and even some informal channels within the migrant community, became an invaluable ally, a crucial bridge between Elena's desperate search and the broader world. Together they started digging, following every lead, no matter how faint, cross-referencing information, interviewing anyone who would talk, building a comprehensive picture of the events, piece by agonizing piece. Sarah's articles, initially published in small local papers and then picked up by larger online news outlets, began to gain traction, drawing national attention to the plight of the missing group, transforming a local tragedy into a national concern. The pressure on authorities, initially dismissive, mounted with each new article, each public appeal, each broadcast segment, forcing them to acknowledge the gravity of the situation and allocate more resources to the search. Elena felt a flicker of hope, a fragile flame in the vast darkness, knowing that she was no longer alone in her fight. One crucial piece of evidence emerged from a discarded backpack found by a group of volunteer hikers, members of a local search and rescue team near a remote canyon known as Serpent's Gulch. The area was notoriously difficult to navigate, a labyrinth of narrow passages and steep rock faces, a place where few dared to venture, a natural fortress guarding its secrets. The backpack, sun-faded and worn, its fabric bleached by the relentless sun, was partially buried under a pile of loose rocks, as if someone had tried to conceal it in haste, to erase its very existence. It contained a tattered photograph of Miguel and Elena, taken years ago, their faces beaming, their smiles innocent, a stark contrast to the grim reality of the present. There was also the small, hand-carved wooden bird, the one Miguel had given Elena, now found abandoned, its smooth surface dulled by dust, its once vibrant wood now faded, a chilling omen, a symbol of hope now found discarded, and most significantly, a single, water-damaged page torn from a small notebook, its edges frayed, its paper brittle, almost disintegrating. On the page, scrawled in Miguel's distinctive hurried handwriting, were 3 words, "Not the path." Below it, a crude but unmistakable drawing of a skull, its empty eye sockets staring out from the page, a silent scream of warning. The discovery sent a jolt of terror through Elena, a cold dread that spread through her veins, chilling her to the bone, making her hands tremble uncontrollably. This was not just a group that got lost. They had encountered something truly terrifying, something that had forced Miguel to leave a desperate, cryptic warning, a final message from beyond the grave. The wooden bird, a symbol of hope, now found abandoned, felt like a final, devastating goodbye, a tangible link to a life that had been brutally cut short, a silent testament to a promise broken by unseen forces. The investigation intensified, focusing on the area where the backpack was found. Search and rescue teams, now with more resources thanks to the media attention Sarah had generated, scoured the rugged terrain, their efforts hampered by the vastness and unforgiving nature of the desert, its hidden crevices and deceptive vistas, its ability to swallow secrets whole. Drones flew overhead, mapping the landscape with intricate precision, while K9 units sniffed through the brush, their keen senses searching for any trace of human presence, their barks echoing eerily in the silence. Days turned into weeks, marked by the relentless sun, beating down during the day, raising temperatures to unbearable levels, and the biting cold of the desert nights, dropping them to near freezing, the extreme temperatures adding another layer of challenge, a cruel test of endurance for both the searchers and the missing. The psychological toll on the searchers was immense, but for Elena, it was a constant, agonizing vigil, a living nightmare. She walked alongside them whenever she could, her eyes scanning the horizon, praying for a sign, any sign. Her body aching, her spirit weary but unyielding, driven by a desperate hope that refused to die. The confrontation came not with a single suspect, but with the chilling realization that the coyote, El Fantasma, had vanished as well. His associates, when pressed by Sarah and the authorities, offered conflicting stories, their fear palpable, their evasiveness a clear indication that they knew more than they were letting on, that they were hiding something significant, something dangerous. It became clear that El Fantasma himself might have been a victim, caught in a trap he couldn't escape, or perhaps a betrayer, abandoning the group to save himself, a cowardice that sealed their fate. The truth was a tangled web of desperation and deceit, each thread leading to more questions, more painful possibilities, a labyrinth of lies. The desert, with its vast, indifferent expanse, seemed to be conspiring against her, holding its secrets close, its silence deafening, its secrets buried deep within its unforgiving embrace. What were they hiding, and why? The answers, she knew, lay buried beneath the sand, waiting to be unearthed. Then came the discovery that shattered Elena's fragile hope, extinguishing the last flicker of light in her heart, leaving her in a darkness she had never known, a void that threatened to consume her entirely. Near a shallow, unmarked grave, hidden beneath a cluster of mesquite trees, their gnarled branches offering scant concealment, their shadows long and distorted in the afternoon sun, searchers found human remains. The location was remote, miles from any road, accessible only by foot through treacherous terrain, a place designed to hide secrets, a place where the desert held its breath. The identification process was agonizingly slow, each passing hour a torment for Elena, a cruel extension of her suffering, a prolonged agony. But the initial findings confirmed the worst. Belonged to one of the women from Miguel's group, the young mother Sofia. Her identification was confirmed by a distinctive silver necklace she wore, a small crucifix, which had been found clutched in her skeletal hand, a silent testament to her faith and her final moments, a heartbreaking detail. The cause of death was not exposure, not dehydration, but blunt force trauma to the head, a clear sign of violence, of a brutal, deliberate act. This was not an accident, this was murder. The desert had not simply claimed them, it had witnessed a crime, a brutal act of violence, a horrifying end to a desperate journey. The skull drawing in Miguel's notebook took on a horrifying new meaning, a premonition of the terror they had faced, a chilling confirmation of his last, desperate warning, a final message from a dying hand. Elena collapsed, the weight of the world pressing down on her, the air leaving her lungs in a ragged gasp, her body shaking with a grief so profound. It felt physical, as if her very bones were shattering. The nightmare had become a horrifying reality, a truth more terrible than any fear she had imagined, a truth that would forever scar her soul. The revelations cascaded, each one more devastating than the last, painting a grim picture of that fateful night. The police, now fully engaged and with the support of federal agencies, including Homeland Security investigations, uncovered evidence suggesting the group had been intercepted not by Border Patrol, but by a rival criminal organization, a ruthless cartel known for extorting migrants, their reach extending far beyond the border. This particular faction, known as Los Lobos, or the Wolves, operated with brutal efficiency, preying on vulnerable groups, their territory extending deep into the borderlands, their reputation for violence preceding them. They had demanded more money, far beyond what the group could pay, an exorbitant sum for safe passage through their territory, a ransom for their lives, a price they could never afford. When resistance was met, when the migrants, already depleted and desperate, could offer no more, violence ensued, swift and merciless. Intercepted communications, informant testimonies from within the cartel's lower ranks, and the discovery of other shallow graves linked to similar incidents in the same area began to piece together the horrifying narrative, revealing a pattern of brutality, a chilling modus operandi. The "not the path" message from Miguel was a desperate warning, a realization that their journey had veered into a nightmare, that their trusted coyote had led them into a trap, or had been forced to, becoming an unwitting accomplice to their demise, a betrayal that sealed their fate. El Fantasma, it was revealed, had either been forced to cooperate under duress, his own life threatened by the ruthless cartel, or had tried to escape the ambush, abandoning the group to their fate in a moment of desperate self-preservation. His disappearance was now understood as a desperate flight, not necessarily a sign of his complicity in the initial ambush, though his actions were still unforgivable in their cowardice and betrayal of trust. He had chosen self-preservation over the lives of those he was paid to protect, leaving them to the mercy of the cartel, a decision that would haunt him forever. The psychological impact on Elena was immense. The initial grief for Sofia was quickly overshadowed by the chilling certainty that Miguel and the others had likely met a similar fate, a fate too terrible to fully comprehend. The hope that had sustained her, the desperate belief that she would find him alive, began to crumble, leaving behind a gaping wound in her soul, a void that seemed to consume her, a darkness that threatened to swallow her whole. She experienced vivid nightmares, waking in a cold sweat, hearing Miguel's last words, seeing the skull drawing, reliving the horror in her sleep. The images burned into her mind, yet, amidst the despair, a new resolve hardened within her. If she couldn't bring them home alive, she would bring them justice. The desert, once a symbol of their freedom, was now a vast, silent tomb, holding the secrets of their final moments, a grim monument to their lost dreams. The hidden motivations were clear: unchecked greed, the brutal pursuit of power, human life, and a callous disregard for. The cartel saw migrants not as people with dreams and families, but as commodities, their lives expendable in the pursuit of illicit profits. The sheer inhumanity of it all was almost impossible to comprehend, a darkness that defied understanding, a chilling reminder of the depths of human cruelty. The search continued now, a grim recovery mission, meticulously combing every inch of the desolate landscape, each rock, each crevice, each patch of brush, under the relentless gaze of the sun. Over the next few weeks, more remains were found, scattered across a wide area, testament to the desperate flight and the brutal pursuit that had unfolded, a horrifying trail of evidence, each discovery confirming the chilling narrative. Each discovery was a fresh wound, a confirmation of the horror, a painful step closer to the full truth, a piece of the puzzle she never wanted to complete. Miguel's body was among them, identified by a small, distinctive scar above his eyebrow, a mark from a childhood accident, and the tattered remains of a faded blue shirt Elena had given him for his last birthday, a shirt he had worn with pride, now reduced to rags. The confirmation was a crushing blow, a physical pain that tore through her, leaving her breathless and empty, as if a part of her own soul had been ripped away, a part that could never be recovered. But with the profound grief came a strange, albeit agonizing sense of closure. She had found him. She had kept her promise, even if it was to bring him home in a way she never wished for, in pieces, not whole, not alive. The small wooden bird, found with his backpack, was returned to her, its smooth surface now a source of comfort, a tangible link to her lost brother, a symbol of both their bond and the tragedy that had consumed him. She clutched it tightly, a silent prayer on her lips, a tear tracing a path through the dust on her cheek. The consequences of the cartel's actions reverberated far beyond the immediate families. The discovery of the mass grave and the brutal nature of the deaths sparked outrage, not just locally, but nationally and internationally, fueled by Sarah Chen's relentless reporting and the growing media attention. The case became a symbol, a stark illustration of the dangers migrants faced, of the human cost of illicit crossings, and the unchecked power of criminal organizations that preyed on the vulnerable. This led to increased pressure on both U.S. and Mexican authorities to crack down on these ruthless organizations operating along the border, to dismantle their networks and bring their leaders to justice, to address the systemic failures that allowed such atrocities to occur. Several arrests were made, not directly of the cartel's top leaders, who remained elusive and protected by their vast networks and corruption, but of lower-level operatives involved in the ambush and the subsequent cover-up. The foot soldiers who carried out the atrocities, those who could be caught. El Fantasma, the original coyote, was eventually apprehended months later, far from the border, in a small town in Texas, his face haunted by what he had witnessed and the guilt of his abandonment, his eyes filled with a hollow despair. His testimony, though coerced and delivered with obvious fear for his own life, provided crucial details that helped piece together the full horror of that night, confirming the cartel's involvement in the sequence of events, shedding light on the dark corners of the smuggling world, revealing the intricate web of deceit and violence. While not all perpetrators were brought to justice, and the cartel's network remained largely intact, the case served as a stark public reminder of the human cost of illicit crossings and the dangers lurking in the shadows, forcing a conversation that had long been ignored, a spotlight on a hidden tragedy that had been playing out silently for far too long. The desert, once a silent witness, had finally spoken, its secrets laid bare for the world to see. For Elena, life would never be the same. The raw grief eventually softened into a profound sorrow, a constant ache in her heart, a shadow that would forever follow her, a part of her identity, inextricably linked to Miguel's memory. She carried the weight of Miguel's memory, but also the strength he had inspired in her, a resilience she never knew she possessed, forged in the crucible of loss. She became an advocate, a powerful voice for the voiceless, sharing Miguel's story and the stories of the others, ensuring they were not forgotten, that their lives were not just statistics, but individual tragedies that demanded recognition, that their dreams were not in vain. She worked tirelessly with organizations dedicated to assisting migrant families, providing support, navigating the complex legal and humanitarian systems, and fighting for safer, more humane pathways for those seeking a better life, for a future where such tragedies could be prevented, where hope did not have to lead to a desolate grave. Her determination, born from personal tragedy, transformed into a broader mission, a legacy of her brother's lost dreams, a testament to the enduring power of love. The community, both in the U.S. and Mexico, rallied around her, inspired by her unwavering courage and resilience, by her refusal to let the silence consume her, by her fierce commitment to justice. The desert, once a place of terror and despair, became a symbol of remembrance, a silent witness to both unimaginable tragedy and the enduring power of a sister's love, a testament to the human spirit's capacity to find purpose even in the deepest sorrow, to turn pain into action, to transform grief into a powerful force for change. Elena, once a quiet sister, had become a formidable force, her voice echoing across, a beacon for those still lost in the shadows. This story, though born from pain and loss, carries a powerful lesson, that even in the face of unimaginable tragedy, hope for truth and justice can prevail. It is a stark reminder of the human lives behind the headlines, the dreams shattered, and the families left to pick up the pieces, forever marked by the choices made in desperation and the brutal realities of a perilous journey. May their stories serve as a beacon, guiding us towards a future where no one has to vanish in the shadows, where every life is valued, and where the pursuit of a dream does not end in a desolate grave. The desert wind still howls, but now, for Elena, it carries not just secrets, but the echoes of voices finally heard, of lives finally honored, of a justice hard won. The silence is no longer deafening. It is filled with the quiet strength of remembrance, and the enduring power of a love was a testament to the fact that even in the most desolate landscapes, Elena's journey, the human spirit can find a way to bloom, transforming sorrow into purpose and loss into a legacy of hope. Her unwavering resolve brought a measure of peace to countless families, ensuring that the victims of the desert's hidden horrors would never truly be forgotten. Her fight became a symbol, a rallying cry for a more humane world, a world where the desperate journey for a better life would not be met with such brutal indifference. If this story resonated with you, please consider sharing it to raise awareness for the countless families still searching for their loved ones, for the many who have disappeared along the treacherous paths of migration, their fates unknown. Leave a like to honor the memory of Miguel and the others, and comment below with your thoughts on this harrowing journey and the silent struggles faced by so many. Note, this story is entirely fictional. Any resemblance to real persons, places, or events is purely coincidental.